Congressman, you've seen the picture of National Guardsmen sleeping on the floor of a parking garage. What's that all about?
Well, in my opinion, it's disrespect to the National Guard. Here we brought in 25,000 troops, and we didn't provide adequate accommodations for them. It's ridiculous. But by the way, I happen to have a constituent who has relatives serving there from another state. This type of thing that we're seeing is disrespect and should never have happened. They need to get this solved quite a bit. And this is actually, quite frankly, what happens when you turn Washington, D.C. into a military installation.
Well, and we understand it's going to stay as a military installation for the next couple of months. Those 5,000 troops at least are supposed to be there until March.
Yeah, and there's no justification for that. They don't want to get the Democrats don't want to get back to regular order on anything, including the nation's capital, and that is going to be a problem going forward. This is, as some people have said, some commentators have suggested that this is an attempt to show power, governmental centralization of power through the station of military all over the United States Capitol. It is unfortunate. It shouldn't happen, and I hope that they rethink that.
K.T. McFarland was on Fox earlier and said that essentially she believes that the National Guard troops are being used as a photo op. Listen.
They bring in National Guardsmen from all over the country, and then they have them as a photo op because there they were. Washington looked like an armed camp. And yet when they were done with the photo op, when it was clear there was not going to be a crisis, they had no use for the National Guard. So what did they do? Like you said, slept on concrete floors. These are men and women who came from all over the country to help the nation, to protect the nation's capital on Inauguration Day. And when they were no longer necessary, they were cast aside.
Is the idea of keeping those troops in the Capitol until March? I mean, again, is that just part of the photo op kind of situation that makes it look like Washington is such a dangerous place?
Yeah, on the first level, John, I agree that it is a photo op. They were taking pictures. They want to cast an image. But the second part is they want to cast an image that says Republicans and the right are dangerous, and we need to keep all these people here. And in so doing, they're also saying, look at how powerful your national government is. And it really is ridiculous, and it's overkill. And they don't have any justification. They haven't proven any justification. We saw that it's good to be prepared. I will grant you that, but they way over-prepared, and then they cast these men and women aside who've made the sacrifice for our nation.
Then there was also this from President Biden about the coronavirus pandemic. Listen to what the president had to say.
If we fail to act, there will be a wave of evictions and foreclosures in the coming months as this pandemic rages on, because there's nothing we can do to change the trajectory of the pandemic in the next several months.
Nothing we can do to change the trajectory of the pandemic in the next several months. Your former colleague, former Representative Justin Amash, tweeted about that when he heard the president say it. He said, "There's nothing we can do to change the trajectory of the pandemic in the next several months," quoting the president. "Haven't we been told for several months that restrictions and mandates were necessary to change the trajectory of the pandemic in the next several months?" You agree with him on that?
I do. I mean, just think about this. Joe Biden, President Biden, when he was running, made terrific accusations against this president and criticized him heavily. But think about this part of it, that this is what drives me crazy, is if you really can't change the trajectory, as he says, by doing anything, then why do we have lockdowns, mandates, vaccine mandates being proposed? Why don't we let people go out, calculate the risk, and open up this economy? Then you don't have to spend $2 trillion plus to try to incentivize an economy that you are allowing state governors and local municipalities to kill. And so which is it, candidate Biden or President Biden? Which is the real story here? And somebody didn't come clean one or the other time.
Yeah, as I sit here in New York City, you can't go eat indoors in a restaurant right now because the mayor has deemed it too dangerous, even though the science says there isn't much of an effect, COVID spread in restaurants and the hospitality industry.
No, that's right, John. I mean, we've seen such an inconsistency in who gets locked down and who doesn't get locked down. We actually had testimony in one case out here when they closed down all the gyms, and they said, well, have you ever found a COVID case originating from a gym? And they said no. And yet they closed down all these gyms with thousands and thousands of employees and people who are trying to keep their health good and strong by working out, et cetera. And there's been no consistency here. And that's been part of the problem why so many people are disgusted and dissatisfied with the direction this has gone.
I want to talk to you a little bit about internal Republican politics. Liz Cheney is the number 3 GOP representative in the House. She is in some hot water for having voted to impeach now former President Trump. Some members of your caucus are suggesting that she should be pushed aside or step aside. Where do you fall on that?
Well, it isn't necessarily because she voted for impeachment. I didn't like that. I didn't support that, obviously. But it's the way what she did besides that. She went out and she is representing the entire conference, whether she says she is or isn't. And she puts out a statement saying that what this president did is maybe one of the most heinous things in the history of the U.S. presidency. And guess what? Her words were used, John, over and over again when the Democrats were making their speeches on the floor of the House. And they will be used again when the Senate opens up another bogus trial in the Senate. That is what the problem is. That's what so many of us are upset with. And quite frankly, I don't think Representative Cheney understands that.
Congressman Andy Biggs, Republican of Arizona. Congressman, thank you.
Thanks, John.